Neil Sedaka was remembered not only as a legendary singer and songwriter, but as a man whose life was shaped by family, determination, and love. After his passing, his wife Lieba, his daughter Dara, his son Mark, and the rest of the Sedaka family shared a heartfelt tribute that showed the world something deeper than fame. To millions of fans, he was a music icon, but to his family, he was first a husband, a father, and a grandfather. Their tribute reminded people that before the world knew his songs, there was a young boy with a dream and a mother who believed in him completely. Neil Sedaka grew up in Brighton Beach, Brooklyn, in a small apartment where 11 relatives shared the same home. Life was crowded and money was limited. Yet even in that modest environment, something extraordinary was beginning to take shape. One day, when Neil was still a young boy, a second-grade teacher noticed something special about him. She saw that he had a natural musical ability that could not be ignored. The teacher told his mother that her son had a gift, and that gift needed to be encouraged and developed. But the family could not afford a piano. For many people, that would have been the end of the story, but Neil's mother, Eleanor Sedaka, refused to let that happen. She believed completely in her son's talent. So she did what determined parents often do when they see potential in their child. She found a way. Eleanor took a job at a department store. She worked long hours and carefully saved every bit of money she could. Over time, she finally collected enough to buy a second-hand upright piano. That piano was placed inside their crowded Brooklyn apartment. It may have seemed like a small purchase, but it changed everything. That instrument became the beginning of a musical journey that would later influence generations of listeners around the world. Neil spent countless hours practicing and exploring melodies on that piano. His mother watched proudly as her son's talent grew stronger. Eleanor did more than just buy the instrument. For many years, she helped guide and support his early career. She stood quietly behind the scenes while her son stepped forward into the spotlight. It was her belief that helped make his future possible. Decades later, that future would turn into one of the most successful songwriting careers in pop music history. But every great story eventually reaches its final chapter. On February 27, 2026, Neil Sedaka passed away in Los Angeles at the age of 86. According to reports, he began feeling unwell at home that morning. An ambulance was called and he was taken to the hospital, but by the afternoon he had passed away. The news spread quickly across the world. Fans remembered the legendary voice behind unforgettable songs, while the music industry reflected on the impact he had made over more than 6 decades. For his family, however, the moment was deeply personal. His wife Lieba, their daughter Dara, their son Mark, and their 3 grandchildren shared a statement with the public. The message was posted on Neil Sedaka's official Instagram account. Their words were filled with sadness, but also with gratitude. Our family is devastated by the sudden passing of our beloved husband, father, and grandfather, Neil Sedaka. A true rock and roll legend, an inspiration to millions, but most importantly, at least to those of us lucky enough to know him, an incredible human being who will be deeply missed. Those final words carried special meaning. Incredible human being. In a world where artists are often remembered only for their hit songs, the Sedaka family chose to highlight the person behind the music. For them, the man mattered even more than the legend. One of the most important people in Neil Sedaka's life was his wife, Lieba Strasberg. The two were married in 1962, the same year that his hit song "Breaking Up Is Hard to Do" reached #1 on the charts. Their marriage lasted 64 years, a remarkable partnership that survived both the triumphs and the struggles of a long career in music. During the early 1960s, Neil Sedaka was one of the biggest stars in pop music. Songs like "Calendar Girl," "Oh, Carol," and "Breaking Up Is Hard to Do" made him famous around the world. His melodies were simple, emotional, and unforgettable. But the music industry is always changing. By the mid-1960s, the arrival of bands like the Beatles completely transformed the sound of pop music. Many artists who had been successful earlier in the decade suddenly found themselves struggling to stay relevant. Neil Sedaka faced that challenge as well. The hit songs stopped coming for a time and his career entered a difficult period. For many artists, that might have been the end of the road. But Lieba stayed beside him through those years of uncertainty. In the early 1970s, Neil made a bold decision. He moved to England, hoping that a new environment might help revive his career. That decision eventually led to an important connection. Famous musician Elton John admired Neil Sedaka's songwriting talent and helped introduce his music to a new audience. With that support, Neil began experiencing a comeback. Soon, he returned to the stage once again, performing for enthusiastic crowds who still loved his music. Night after night, he felt the same excitement when he walked onto the stage. Neil once described the feeling of performing in simple words. He said, "It's that adrenaline rush, it's like a natural high when you're in front of an audience." For more than 6 decades, that feeling remained part of his life. And through all of it, Lieba watched from the side of the stage, sharing every moment of the journey. Their daughter Dara also shared a special musical moment with her father. In 1980, the two recorded a duet together called "Should Have Never Let You Go." The song became a hit and created a lasting memory between father and daughter. Although Dara later chose a different path and did not pursue a full-time music career, that duet remained a powerful symbol of their bond. Neil's son Mark followed another creative direction. Instead of music, he became a writer for film and television. Yet storytelling still ran in the family. Just as Neil used music to express emotion, Mark used writing to tell stories on screen. When news of Neil Sedaka's passing reached the public, tributes began appearing from musicians, friends, and fans around the world. One of the most touching messages came from singer-songwriter Carole King. The two had known each other since their teenage years. In fact, Neil Sedaka had written his famous song, "Oh, Carole," about her when they were young. After hearing about his death, Carole King wrote that Neil Sedaka had inspired her to follow her dream of becoming a songwriter. She shared her love, gratitude, and condolences with his family. Other artists also remembered him warmly. Mickey Dolenz of the Monkees described Neil Sedaka as one of the rare songwriters who could truly do everything: write songs, perform them, and connect with audiences for decades. Neil Sedaka's career lasted more than 60 years. He wrote his first song when he was only 13 years old, and he continued writing music even in his 80s. In total, he spent around 67 years creating music. His songs became part of people's lives across generations. But for his family, the memories are far more personal. They remember the husband who shared 64 years of marriage, the father who recorded music with his daughter, and the grandfather who spent quiet time with his grandchildren. When the Sedaka family asked for privacy, they did so with dignity and respect. Their loss was sudden, and they needed time to grieve together. Yet through their message, they reminded the world of something simple but meaningful. The world received Neil Sedaka's music. His family received the man himself. And judging by the love in their tribute, that may have been the greatest gift of all.